And we are recording one more time. This is the Weeknight Mysteries podcast. My name is Yoras. I am here with my co-host Rain. As every week, another most likely Wednesday that this is coming out.
Oh, come on. Just
or
say it out
Thursday.
loud. Don't you think?
Why?
Do you think you'll upload this on a Wednesday or a Thursday?
I mean, I'm gonna try on Wednesday, but that would mean that I have to edit and post after recording immediately. So we'll see. But if it's Thursday, then I guess it's still okay. What are we talking about today? What is the case that we're gonna be analyzing?
So for this week's case, it's all about Kurt Sova, who was a 17-year-old teenager from Ohio. We're going back to American cases for this week. And he had a mysterious disappearance and basically death in 1981. And up until now, it's still unsolved. Well, we found the body, but it's still unknown on what happened to him.
That's true. We have a guy who went missing for a few days back in 81, and then his body was found.
Mm-hmm. And this case has a lot of eerie twists and conflicting witness reports and basically a total lack of concrete answers. And it's actually one of the more frustrating cases, as I would say so, that we tackled before. What do you think?
I don't think it's super frustrating. I think
I got frustrated.
I mean, think about the last couple of cases we talked about. Everything's frustrating on this podcast. Honestly, everything we talk about has been very frustrating lately. But I do get your point because Kurt Sova's case is one of those. I guess it's a case. We have a dead teenager.
It's kind of like a small community, and it feels like the answer is just within our reach, but not really.
Yeah. I guess you're right, but I mean, we will get into some details soon. I think it's time for us to start going over the case. So let me go over some information. Stop me at any point and let's dissect and see what we think. And then obviously we always like when the commenters, the listeners, when you give your opinions lately, oh my God, lately there has been so much activity from our listeners. I don't know if you keep track of the YouTube comments. I always check. I try to reply to every one of them. Now it's actually takes time to reply because you have to read the person's full thoughts and stuff like that. So it's really cool because I don't know, I have a routine. You know what I mean? Every 2 days after a podcast comes out, I go to the YouTube. You know what I mean? There's usually some comments, quite interesting ones, and I just take my time. You know what I mean? In the morning.
Really good insights, right?
Yeah, really
case
good.
Suggestions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening in. You guys are the best. Please leave also your thoughts on what you think could improve the podcast, because honestly we just want to make this thing as enjoyable as possible for you guys and also for ourselves. So please tell us what you like and what you think could be improved. And let's dig into Kurt Sova's mysterious death. Okay,
let's go for it.
Right, so you mentioned a little bit about him already. So we have a 17-year-old Kurt Sova. He was the son of Ken and Dorothy Sova. And as you mentioned earlier, his body was found. His body was found on October 28th, back in 1981, so some time ago. It's an old case. He is originally from Newburgh Heights in Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland. You know, Cleveland is a big Ohio city. His body was found by 3 young boys in a ravine.
No, I just want to actually say, I tried to research a little bit about how would you say it?
It's
Newburgh?
No, it's Newburgh Heights.
Newburgh Heights. Sorry for butchering that one. But this town is very interesting because as of 2020, there are about 1.8K people living in there.
1.8. So it's a So it's a small town.
It's a small town. And in the 80s, there were around 2,678 residents in there. It's a small town, but it's so close to Cleveland. It's kind of like a suburb, I believe.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's interesting. So you're saying that the population is slowly decreasing over the years.
Yeah. Well, actually, all I wanted to say is just a small town.
Yeah, it's a small town.
And actually, as of the 2000s, there were about 3.4% Polish speakers. Very interesting.
What?
Yep. I found it on Wikipedia.
3.4% Polish speakers? Mm-hmm. That's like Lithuania.
96% spoke English, 3.4% spoke Polish, and 0.7 spoke Spanish.
Whoa.
And I was like, that's so random.
Yeah, 3.4 speaks Polish. I mean, okay, like to our listeners, this might seem like a small amount, but then I don't know. You walk around in Ohio, and then
And like in the middle of America. Random.
the last thing you would expect to hear is some Polish.
Yeah, right? And here it's very common. It's just very interesting.
Yeah, okay, that's a cool fact. No, I don't know. Kurt Sova, I don't think he's Polish, right?
No, not really.
That didn't
I
seem,
didn't see anything about it.
Yeah, me neither. That was interesting. Okay, so he was found dead. He was laying down in the puddle in the ravine. His body was in a very strange Christ-like pose because he had his kind of like his hands and his arms and the rest of his body like forming a cross position, like a cross. And it seems that his body was deliberately placed in the location where it was later found. So it was very strange. And apart from some minor scratches and bruises that most likely occurred during the time when he was dragged potentially into that location, no other signs of injury were found. And this was one of the strange things about this case, is that we don't really know what is the cause of death. It has never been determined, even though the body's decomposition had not passed a 24-hour mark yet. We have no cause of death, even if the body hasn't decomposed for longer than 24 hours upon its discovery. That is bizarre, in my opinion, because usually you don't have a cause of death if the body has been decomposing for weeks or a month. You know what I mean? It's just one full day, and there's nothing on the body.
That's just crazy.
So it's almost like, how did Kurt die?
Exactly.
Several hours later, okay, no, I was gonna read something else here. So that's all we know right now. Okay, so the biggest questions that jump to all of us when we talk about Kurt Sova's case is, where was Kurt shortly before his body was found? Because he was missing for a total of, I believe, 5 days upon the time when his body was discovered, and he was not known to go missing. He would always let his parents know where he's at, and he would always come back at around like 10 or 11 p.m. every day.
So do you think he was generally how do you say it, like a good rule following teenager?
Yes, that's the understanding.
Just want to clear out that part. Maybe some people would think he was a rowdy one who would just like run away for days.
It doesn't seem like that was Kurt. Also, how did he die and where did he die? Did he die in that location where he was found in some very strange ravine? Or was he placed there? Or was his body placed there? And how could he possibly die? Because he was perfectly healthy at the time of his death. He didn't have any apparent, medical conditions or anything like that. Very strange. And now let's talk about the background that led to his disappearance, okay? So Kurt was a high school junior at the time, okay? He lived with his parents in a quiet, blue-collar neighborhood on the outskirts of Cleveland. He was the youngest of four sons in total. And it was mentioned that he was the closest one to his parents. Maybe it makes sense because he was also like the youngest. So you know how like the youngest probably always stays close to the parents. According to Dorothy, who was Kurt's mother, Kurt, he apparently had no known enemies or he wasn't in trouble with anyone. He was getting along with his neighbors and he was apparently doing okay in school, so he didn't have any like back or like a bad background.
No bullies whatsoever.
No, doesn't look like it. He never got into trouble with police or any of that stuff as well. So Kurt left his home the last time when he was last seen by his parents on Friday, October 23rd, in the afternoon. It was pretty late, apparently. One block from his home, he met up with a friend of his named Sam. So Sam told Kurt that there was a Halloween party taking place on that Friday, and they decided to go there together. So Kurt never returned home. According to his mother, he rarely stayed out all night. He would normally come home around 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. at the latest. He would only stay out late if his parents knew where he was, but on that night he never came back home. So I immediately want to ask you, like, because we already know the details about the case and we're gonna, like try to analyze it as we go. But do you think that he knew he would not be returning home on this Friday? Or do you think that something happened at the Halloween party that made him not go back home? Do you think that when he left home, do you think he already had his mind set up that I'm not coming back home tonight?
Of course not. I have a feeling, and I'm just assuming here, that he went to that party. He drank. He was 17, underage, and he couldn't get back home.
Okay, yeah.
He'd be in trouble.
So I generally agree with you. I guess he knew that. I guess he left. He was thinking that he would come back home, but something happened at the party that made him not go back home. Basically, that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next morning, now we're jumping to Saturday morning. Kurt's parents became worried because he wasn't back home yet. Dorothy started calling his friends, while his father Ken started searching the area. He searched all of the neighborhoods and all the places where he could think that, Kurt could be hanging out. But they couldn't find anything. As the day went on and no trace of Kurt was found, Ken, his father, began to start getting even more worried. On Sunday, now this is one day into Kurt's disappearance, Kurt's parents registers him as a missing person with the Cleveland police. Meanwhile, his mother and other sons, because remember he had 3 other siblings, papered the neighborhoods with his missing flyers. His family and friends searched ravines, schoolyards, and even dumpsters for him. And let's remember that his parents searched ravines, and there is a theory going on that Ken, Kurt's father, said later on that he had searched that same exact ravine where he is found a couple of days afterwards, already on day 1 of him being missing. So that means that Kurt's body was potentially moved, or, maybe Kurt himself died in that ravine only after he was already missing. So it's a complex case. It's not as simple as we think. There's a lot of things happening here, and there's going to be like a lot of different people. And yeah, it's a big boy case. I think all of our listeners should grab a snack
Or start vacuuming.
Start vacuuming, because we have a lot to go over.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where I initially thought it would be simple. When I was reading like one article, I thought it would be like, oh, easy. I already know what to do. I already know what to think, my theory. But then as I dive deeper and deeper into it, I don't know, I get even more lost. And at the end of reading like the fifth article, I'm like, yeah, something's up. Definitely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that Halloween party, where Kurt went. Because obviously, if we're going to start analyzing, that's the first place we need to start looking at. So, Halloween party. It was apparently taking place on October 23rd, Friday. So, I guess it's not really Halloween. It's like a week before Halloween. But, people will make an excuse to have a party at any time of the year. So, I completely understand
Of
that.
course, yeah.
So on Sunday, 2 days into Kurt's disappearance, Dorothy, which is his mother, turned up a lead. Okay, Kurt's friends had told her that he had been at the party on Friday. And this immediately tells me that Kurt did not tell his mother that there was a party happening. So she only found out that 2 days into his disappearance. And she was also told that this party was happening less than 2 miles from their home. So pretty close, definitely walking distance. She went to the duplex house that was on Harvard Street, and that's where the party had been taking place. We have an image of this house. So, yeah, you grab the file. I'm going to try to describe the house where I'm pretty sure you've seen it, right? You did the research, but we could reflect again to the house. It looks like a very, you know what I mean? This house just screams Ohio, like suburbs. I don't know what about it, but like if you say that,
American.
but for some reason this to me screams Ohio. Maybe I'm crazy, but like if you like put Ohio suburbs in the dictionary, like I would say this is the house you should be looking at.
I have no idea how to distinguish houses from different states.
No, it's just American, man. Like you will never find this type of house here. I mean, it has like it's so kind of like it doesn't make sense in a lot of ways to me.
It's kind of comfy in a way.
It's comfy, but there is no backyard. Doesn't look like there's a backyard. It's like in the middle of a street, and there's a lot of electrical poles around it, and there's also no balconies that I could look at. Like, how are you building a house with no balconies? That's like the American thing.
Oh,
I
come
guess.
on. That's so European of you.
No, but I mean, how can just put a balcony in there?
Actually, I went into Google Maps earlier today, and I went to the street view of a random street in Ohio,
In this town?
in this town, yep. And it had this very kind of homey vibe.
Really?
Yeah, it's just a bunch of like, standard American houses. And I don't know, maybe it's our childhood watching a lot of American shows. And it's kind of like really nice and comfortable in a way.
Yeah, no, I get it. I also think those, like suburbs, like from Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
That's like,
Massive houses, though.
but that's so cozy. We don't have that, nothing near it. So that's real cool. Anyways, the woman who was renting the apartment, apparently the duplex, I wouldn't call this an apartment. I would say this is a huge house. Or
So
no,
duplex means a huge house cut in the middle, right?
I don't know. I don't know what duplex is.
I believe so. Like not like literally cut in the middle, more like imagine a house and
The space is divided.
yeah, like yep.
Okay. Anyways, so there was a woman who was renting the duplex, whatever that is. Her name was Suzanne. So Dorothy went up to the door and the woman answered the door. But it wasn't Suzanne. It was another woman who was babysitting for Suzanne while Suzanne was at work. I don't know who this woman is. Could be Suzanne's mother or anything like that. I somehow never got any other information about it, but I think it's okay. Maybe maybe this woman doesn't play a role. Dorothy asked this woman who was babysitting if there was a party taking place, like on Friday, And the woman said that she did not know about any party. Maybe she wasn't there. And Dorothy told the woman to ask Suzanne to call her when she comes back from work. So when Suzanne returned home, she called Dorothy and she told her that she never saw Kurt and that there was no party happening at her rented duplex. However, later on, a pizza delivery man stated that indeed there was a party taking place in the duplex on Friday night, and then Dorothy contacted Suzanne again and confronted her with that new information. And this time, Suzanne admitted to having a Halloween party that Friday. Very strange behavior by Suzanne. Why would she lie? And she said that Kurt indeed was at the party, and in total there was more than a dozen people there. Some of them were older than Kurt, and most of them were people who Kurt have never met before. So very strange stuff happening here. She admitted that there was a party only after Dorothy confronted her with, the information that was provided by the pizza guy. And I was thinking about it. Why would she lie?
Actually, I was supposed to ask you that. Like, how could you lie to a grieving and worried mother of a
Because
missing
you
boy?
have something to hide.
Exactly.
And you know what I think she has to hide? I think this Suzanne woman, she has to hide the fact that maybe Kurt was 17. And in America, drinking age, I believe,
21, right?
21. So probably there was so much underage drinking happening there. Suzanne didn't want to get in trouble.
I agree.
And and I also don't understand the living arrangements either. Apparently, she's at work while some other woman is babysitting apparently her kid. So she had this crazy Halloween party with crazy underage drinking while having a kid that would need babysitting. So that means a little kid. I mean, this Suzanne is really like right now it's not looking good. About like this Suzanne not looking that good right now.
Did the police investigate her? Because there has to be something in there. She's
So
looking very suspicious.
So, what I've learned as I was trying to read more about this case is that apparently law enforcement they didn't even go inside of the duplex. Because Kurt was found outside of the duplex.
Yeah, but you do know that he was there before he was found outside of the duplex.
Yeah, I think they really
Mishandled that
dropped
situation, yeah.
dropped the ball, heavy duty style on this one. Suzanne told Dorothy that Kurt had been drinking very heavily. So I think that might be one of the reasons why she was hiding the fact that there was a party in the first place.
Yeah, but you're an adult, and you could see that a teenage boy looking like an underage teenage boy is drinking heavily. I mean, she could have stepped in and stopped it.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you think this could be like one of those like 17 and pregnant women?
What do you mean?
Like MTV 17 teen mom, sorry, teen mom. Do you think this Suzanne was at one point a teen mom?
I want to know her age actually
Yeah,
during
I
this
don't know
party.
who this person is, but
Was
I feel
she
like
like a proper adult or was she like young-ish adult?
I feel like she could have been on Teen Moms at some point.
Just chilling, just having fun, huh?
Yeah. So apparently, according to Suzanne, Kurt had been mainly drinking liquor called Everclear, which we don't have here, and I've never seen it in my life. And it's a pretty hardcore booze because the alcohol content is 95%.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Is that even legal?
Apparently not in every state, even in America, but some states are legal. And apparently even Everclear, the company itself, I think they brand this thing as a part of the drink. Like I don't think anyone should be drinking this as it is. because apparently it's like really terrible. But you could, I've read some Reddit about it, and then I found out that most people would use Everclear at like, college parties when they're trying to like make the punch more heavy duty. You know what I mean? Like they will mix it with a lot of like different juice or something like that. But you're not supposed to just drink it because it's crazy. It's like 95%. Vodka is 40%. You take a vodka shot, you feel like you're gonna die. You know what I mean? What happens when you take a shot of this Everclear?
Alcohol poisoning.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So this is a bad news situation. Dorothy was shocked when she found out that Kurt was drinking because she never saw her son drink before. And she believes that if everyone else at the party was drinking, that most likely Kurt would also be drinking because, he was part of the crowd, part of the party. Understandable, you know what I mean? At 17, I would say I'd probably be doing the same thing.
Same here. I would be doing the same thing.
I feel like most people at the party will drink, so it's normal, right? And also, it was interesting because at the party, there was a group of people that Kurt barely knew. I think maybe potentially Sam was the only person that he knew about it. So I think maybe this was like Sam's friend group, potentially, you know what I mean? Or maybe Sam knew Suzanne, something like that. So Sam, Kurt's friend who went with him to the party, later told Kurt's family that Kurt continued to drink, and at some point he began to stumble around and started knocking things over, and then he got sick. So I think maybe he puked, which is understandable. He's drinking like heavy booze, right?
It's Everclear.
Yeah. It's kind of tough, right? So Suzanne asked Sam, and now we're going to be talking about how Kurt went missing. And this is strange because did he go missing or did he not go missing? This is a very bizarre case, and we need to like really try to keep track of what's happening. So let's first talk about what Sam told Dorothy.
Sam, the friend, right?
And yeah. So Sam said that at some point, Suzanne, the woman who was running the party at her rented duplex, told him to take Kurt outside because Kurt's already uncontrollably intoxicated. So at around 9:30 p.m. at night in the evening on a Friday, Sam took Kurt out front so that he could get some air. Because it was a chilly night, apparently, it was October, late October in Ohio. It's probably similar weather to like Lithuania, so it's like chilly. He went back to get Kurt's jacket because apparently Kurt first walked out, maybe just with a t-shirt or something. And he basically left Kurt outside just for a little bit because his intention was, go grab the jacket, come back outside, check out Kurt, check him out right now. You know what I mean? When he came back outside a few minutes later, Kurt was gone. According to Sam, Kurt was just gone.
Understandably so, because he was drunk. And now I'm wondering, how fast can a drunk teenage boy walk or run away from everyone?
That's a good point because he was stumbling around and he was vomiting and he must have been cold. Why would he go anywhere? And Sam said that he was only away for a couple of minutes. So you immediately need to start, in my opinion, questioning Sam's story.
Okay, now I'm curious. Do we know the exact time when they went out of the house to get some fresh air?
9:30.
9:30. And what time did they go to the party?
It's never mentioned, but it's late in the evening, late in the afternoon. So
I'm assuming 6 or 7
6
p.m.
or 7. So that means that Kurt got drunk real quick.
That's what I was thinking as well. If he was already sick, he was vomiting, it was already intense.
Yeah, that's a good point. Being already that out of it by 9:30 is kind of early.
Way too early. I
Way too
mean, we
early.
also have to remember that he was drinking one of the world's strongest alcohol.
Oh yeah, man, that Everclear, whatever that is.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So it's only understandable. It's just that it's kind of scary how they let this teenage boy just drink that.
I guess everyone was drinking it. Uh, Also, Kurt was a slim guy, so he didn't have a lot of body weight, so he could get really intoxicated really quickly, you know? So apparently, what Sam did later, and I'm like thinking, is Sam even telling the truth at this point? But let's just go with Sam's story. Apparently, Sam searched the surrounding area, but he did not find Kurt anywhere. Sam assumed, for some reason, that Kurt had walked home, which would be around 2 miles in the cold while being completely intoxicated and without a jacket, because the jacket was later found in the duplex. So Sam just assumed that Kurt walked back home, and then I don't know what he did next. Maybe he went back into the party. Regardless, we've seen this happen so many times where someone assumes that oh, the guy just went back home, and that he never comes back home ever again, or they found the person dead. I feel like this is a huge red flag. Like you never wanna let
Don't ever leave a drunk friend behind.
or any person who's drunk, you know what I mean, alone. That's a, I mean, the chances of something happening bad is
Massive.
massive. So naturally, when Dorothy heard Sam's story, she became hysterical, which is understandable. She was certain that something had happened to Kurt either at the party or on the way home. So now let's jump into 5 days after he's already missing. Okay. On Wednesday, October 28th. It's 5 days. Kurt literally just, for some reason, doesn't go back home. His body is discovered in a ravine behind the warehouse on Harvard Street. He was found just 500 yards or 450 meters away from the duplex, really close, super walkable distance. And he's been found uh, like in a very weird location, to be honest, because Lieutenant Robert Karras, who was the Newburgh Heights Police Department lieutenant, he believes that Kurt's body was dumped in that ravine, and whoever dumped his remains there, they did it on purpose because they knew that people would eventually walk in that area and that Kurt's remains would be found. Very strange. Want to reflect on that a bit, or not really?
I don't find it strange at all. I kind of find it intentional.
Yeah, but isn't that strange?
What do you mean?
Like, why leave a body where it's gonna be found? If you have something to do with a young teenage boy dying, why are you putting their body in a place where it's gonna be found? And it's already the 80s. I don't know what kind of DNA technology they were working with, but I think they had something already.
Maybe they're trying to make it seem like a Kurt fell in there.
Ah, okay, okay.
Made it seem like an accident.
That's a good point. That's a good point because I think this. Okay, so to me, the way the body is found, and if it was really moved into the ravine, I think to me it seems like it would have been done by maybe like teenagers or like younger people, maybe people who don't have access to a car, per se, people who can't really transport a body uh, long distances.
Yeah.
Don't you feel that way? Because if this was like some grown men who were doing it, you know what I mean, or grown women or whatever, like adults, I feel like they would put the car in the trunk, drive it to a forest, and you know, dump it in the river or something like that. But just because this was in such close proximity, it almost seems like they dumped it just to kind of like, I don't know, have nothing to do with it at the end of the day.
I kind of pictured like two people maybe carrying him towards it and then kind of dragging him a little bit to the spot where he was found, because you mentioned that the body's position was like in a Christ-like position, right?
Yeah.
With the arms a little bit even on the sides,
Yeah.
I guess. And because right there, if I lay on the floor and you pull me, my arms would naturally, spread open. No?
That's true. That's true.
But not enough that there would be drag marks. So I'm assuming somebody carried him there and they dragged him a little bit towards the spot where he was found.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And he had minor scratches on his body. So maybe
So he wasn't dragged all the way.
or maybe he was dragged for some point, but maybe that explains the scratches on the
No,
body.
I'm assuming that if he was dragged all the way, then his arms would be, I don't know, kind of like this above his head.
Yeah, good point. Good point. To somehow like
Completely straight. Yeah.
halfway drag. Yeah, something like that, right? The police searched the areas for clues. They couldn't find anything. They found, okay, man, they found something. It seems like they found that his left shoe was wedged in some rocks, less than 12 feet away from his body. So pretty close. So I think maybe this could be explained if his body was being dragged, that maybe, one of the shoes kind of like slipped off his foot. But the bizarre thing is that the shoe on his other leg, on his right leg, the right shoe was never found. So where's the right shoe? And this is so strange to me. You know what I mean? Maybe it's been already lost some time ago.
Yeah, potentially.
His body was then taken to the coroner's office for an autopsy, and the coroner determined that he had died around 24 hours before his body was found. So this is very bizarre because I think this was maybe like the biggest like what the hell moment in the case, because let's remember that he's found 5 days into his disappearance and now the coroner is telling them that he only died 24 hours ago. That means that he was alive for 4 days since Friday.
Crazy.
Wow, right?
It's really crazy.
And on top of that, the coroner could not determine the cause of death. Apparently, there was no like serious injuries, and there was basically nothing that would indicate why he died. Apparently, he had not been beaten or traumatized in any way, and his blood alcohol level was 0.11, which was not nearly enough to end his life. And this was 4 days into his disappearance, so I think he still had some alcohol in him or something like that. So maybe he was drinking after the party. I don't know if he was still alive and he was not in captivity or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So apparently, he also had no hard drugs in his system, and he had no pre existing natural diseases. So they determined that it's most likely an accidental death. It's like some sort of instantaneous physiologic death. Instantaneous physiologic death.
Can you please explain?
I don't know what that is. Yeah, I mean, we need to ask our listeners for help here. And also, it's most likely an accident that had taken place. So that's what the coroner said back in 81.
I wonder if they tried to find like fingerprints around his body, because that would have helped.
I mean, that's the first thing that jumps to my mind.
Because I don't think they did something about it. What do you think?
I don't think so. It was never mentioned. Either they didn't do anything or they couldn't find anything on him. And also,
So sorry, really quickly. If they couldn't find any fingerprints on his body, then they would have mentioned it. No fingerprints were found on his body.
no, I don't think they would mention it.
You don't think so?
I think they could find some and still not mention it. What do you think? Like, I think they could keep something for themselves.
Potentially, yeah. It's just very interesting.
At
though.
the same time, even if they do find fingerprints on him, that doesn't necessarily mean that the people whose fingerprints are on him are responsible.
I don't know, like fingerprints on the legs, dragged.
Yeah, I don't know how it works with fingerprints on dead bodies because, in theory, it's just a body. So you touching
Oh, true, yeah.
a body does if you touch a gun linked to someone's death, that's like a lot more incriminating than just touching a body, in my opinion. Because anyone could touch a body.
But like in that position, in
Yeah,
that particular spot,
That's true, but that would be interesting. Like, it would be interesting to know, like, how law enforcement actually treat fingerprints on, like, let's say, suspicious body parts, Because if, yeah, this person is potentially dragged and there are some fingerprints on his hands, would they treat it as, like, incriminating or would they not? Because anyone could just say that, oh, I shook his hand.
at a party, and he didn't wash his hands.
Yeah. Or something,
But
so-
that would like make the investigation a little bit more. What's the word?
it would focus on a specific person. Yeah, good point. Yeah, so we have no idea how Kurt died. Okay, he's just a 17-year-old, goes to a party, doesn't come back home, is missing for 4 days, dies on day 5 for 24 hours, body is in a ravine, is found later on without any signs of trauma or an explanation of how he died. So if we look at the timeline, it seems like he was still alive. I don't know what he was doing for 4 days, but something unexpected happened. An instantaneous physiologic death happens to him accidentally, and somehow his remains appear in the ravine, seemingly dragged into by someone. Very bizarre. Let's move into the few details that did happen. A few very strange things did happen. I think this is where like the other people start coming into the case, like the weird people. And let's jump into the information and the details that took place during the time when he was missing, before his body was found. So first, let's jump into the van situation. Do you know what I'm talking about? The van situation. That there was he was sighted at some point during those days when he was still missing.
No, actually, I didn't hear about
didn't
this
hear
van
about-
sighting. Yep.
Okay, let me walk you through it. So David Trisnik, who was a friend of Kurt's, claims that on Monday, 3 days into Kurt's disappearance, he saw Kurt and another boy who he did not recognize walking along a busy street less than a mile from the Kurt Sova's residence. David, Kurt's friend, was on his way to a job interview when he spotted Kurt. He was driving. So David pulled over to offer Kurt a ride, because he saw Kurt walking. Maybe I'll just give Kurt a ride. And at the same time, a van pulled up as well. And Kurt yelled out, "Franco!" And he and the other boy ran over to the van, and they both got into it. David did not know that Kurt was missing at the time. And he says that if he knew, he would have, followed the van. And 2 days, 2 days later, Kurt was found dead. What do you think?
So you're saying that Kurt could have ran away and hid from his family.
According to David's sighting, that would be one of the lines of thinking.
I don't know. I don't know him or his family personally, but I'm sensing that he didn't seem like that kind of a guy.
Yeah, at least from what I've read.
Like 24 hours after he didn't go home, his family immediately tried to look for him. His brothers, his mom and dad.
It was
It was kind of like a massive thing.
Yeah.
And this party was just what, 2 blocks away?
2 miles.
2 miles away from their home. There's no way that he did not hear about it, that his family was looking for him.
You mean David? Oh, Kurt himself.
Yeah, Kurt himself.
No, of course. And it's been said that Kurt would always come back on the same day. So, so Kurt obviously knew that he would be maybe in trouble.
So if this sighting was credible, then it's basically telling us that Kurt ran away for a little bit before he died.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. But what? Who's in the van? And who's Franco?
Yeah, who's Franco?
Who's Franco? And
Did the police ever figure it out?
no, apparently some Franco guy driving a van. And who's this other boy? Do you think they're somehow like connected to the party?
I have no idea. I don't even know if this was a credible sighting.
And if there was another boy who got in a van with Kurt, and it's like a van, bad things happen inside of a van. So that means that this other boy is also probably missing. So is there another missing boy, or is there another boy who knows something and never came forward?
No, it seems too messy.
Or is David legit seeing things and he did not see Kurt? But the fact that David pulled up, that means like if I'm driving and I'm pulling up, I'm only pulling up if I know for a fact
That you're talking to someone you know.
like I know this is the real person.
Like you're looking
Yeah.
at their faces.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, this guy looks like.
Could be him, could not be
No,
him.
if you're gonna pull up, that means like you legit believe that this is your friend. So that means that David most likely, I don't know the way I'm reading the story. I don't know who this David guy is, but if he is, credible, then that means that Kurt most likely legit was just hanging around.
Well, his family was completely worried about him. I don't see
And
it.
running up to some Franco.
I don't see it. This is just way too messy
Yeah.
and seems too unrealistic.
Yeah, this I think I have my eyebrows raised.
Yeah, how do we know that David wasn't lying?
No, I think he was telling the truth, but David could have been like legit. I'm sorry for saying that word so much. I think David could have been like seeing things
Or mixed up the timeline?
or mixed up the person.
Who the hell is Franco?
Yeah. Okay, sighting number 2. We have a stranger and apparently a crazy person from Detroit. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I need more information, please.
Okay. So on Monday, 2 days into the disappearance of Kurt Sova, when there were missing posters all over town, a stranger who had been seen hanging around the Sova family's neighborhood noticed Kurt's missing flyer in the window of a local record store.
Oh yeah, I remember this one. This one's just plain creepy, like straight up.
Yeah.
Please go on.
So this stranger who's, just hanging around the Sova family's neighborhood, he goes into the record store that had the missing persons poster and told the manager of that store that you could you might as well take the poster down. They're going to find Kurt dead in 2 days. Nobody's gonna know why he died. And then he just walked out.
I'm telling you, this was the one that kind of made me really confused.
So the manager was skeptical. But
What do you mean skeptical? I would have called the police.
I mean, she apparently was skeptical. But soon she had reason to take this guy seriously because the next day when she opens up the store, that stranger had left flowers and a note. I don't know how they know exactly that the flowers and the note were left by this random guy, but apparently somehow they knew, okay? The note said, "Roses are red, the sky is blue, they found him dead, and they'll find you too." Okay? And that's when she calls the cops.
I mean, honestly, this guy is so creepy, and he had the time to think about the poem.
And what's with the flowers?
Oh, come on, it's like a funeral.
So police actually found this guy.
Oh my gosh, please tell me they didn't let him go.
So they determined that he was a crazy person from Detroit, and after questioning him, they released him because they deemed that he is not connected to the case and that he's just crazy.
Whoa.
But they released him as Kurt was still missing. And they did not know that in reality they would find Kurt 2 days later. So either this is a crazy coincidence or this Detroit man has something to do with Kurt's death.
I just had goosebumps. That's
Yeah.
really crazy. It's
Yeah.
really creepy.
Yeah, and when he left the note at the store, according to the coroner, Kurt would be still alive. So that would mean that this Detroit guy would know some sort of intimate information about Kurt's location.
And the police just let him go.
They let him go because at that point Kurt was still missing. I don't think they would have let him go if
What about questioning?
they did interview him. And they did,
More.
I mean, they determined he was a crazy person. But the bizarre thing is that after Kurt was found dead, the man had disappeared and he's never been seen again.
And we don't have any other information about this guy.
No pictures,
Nothing.
nothing. Just a crazy guy from Detroit from the 80s, did some weird stuff.
So do you think the police actually drag him into the police station, did a proper interview, I don't know, gathered all the information about him, or they just ask hey, what are you talking about?
I think I don't think they investigated super much. So I think
Yeah.
the second option.
I mean, the mishandling of this case is crazy.
Yeah. And then I would say lastly, another bizarre moment happened. And this was even more bizarre, believe it or not. This for me is the most bizarre. We have, Juan Franco moment. We have a crazy Detroit guy moment. But I think this third moment is really blows everything out the water for me. And you probably know what I'm talking about. When Suzanne called the family just hours before Kurt was found dead.
Yeah.
What? So basically, we're jumping to Wednesday. On the same day that Kurt was found dead, Dorothy receives a phone call at 3:30 a.m. in the
Jeez.
who calls at 3:30 a.m. So, anyways, it's Suzanne, and Suzanne calls Dorothy and tells Dorothy, Kurt's mom, that someone is sleeping in her basement in the duplex, and it might be Kurt.
So all along, she never checked her basement.
I don't know,
Oh,
man.
that's one way to get killed.
Yeah, basically, and she has a baby with her,
Jeez,
like
3 a.m.
teen mom vibes.
3 a.m. She called Dorothy to tell, oh, there's a stranger in my basement. Could be your son. I don't know for sure.
Teen mom vibes, dude.
I'm not calling the cops.
You know what I
Me and
mean?
my baby could get killed, but it could be your son down there.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Dorothy told Ken, and then Ken obviously goes to the duplex to see if it's Kurt in Suzanne's basement. He goes into the basement, and when he goes down there, he sees no one. But apparently, there is a cot, like a makeshift bed, and it looked like somebody had slept in it recently. So either this person who was sleeping in Suzanne's basement literally got out of there before Ken arrived, somehow in a way that Suzanne didn't detect him. I don't know how Suzanne even noticed this. It's just so strange.
I'm curious, did the police ever go in the basement, check out the cot? Maybe there's like, I don't know, hair there.
They never went into the house. Dorothy believes that Kurt was actually in the basement at some point, and she thinks that Kurt died or was already dead in the cot, in the makeshift bed. And she thinks that her theory, okay, the mom's theory, is that the partygoers panicked at some point when Kurt was dead, and they dragged his body into the ravine. So that's her line of thinking. If this was the reality, if this happened, then that would rule out the Franco van sighting that happened a couple of days later. This would mean that, Kurt died in the party, during the party on Friday. That means he couldn't be alive anymore due to the Van Franco sighting. But then at the same time, how could he have died on Friday if the coroner said that he has only been dead for 24 hours on Wednesday?
Plus, the body would have started decomposing, no?
Yeah,
But it seemed fresh at the time they found him.
exactly. So he couldn't have died on Friday. So was he kept in the basement? Or was he living in the basement for some reason? Whether or not Kurt died in the basement, his parents are unsure, but they are certain about one thing. They think that 24 hours before his body was found, he was not in the ravine because Ken had searched that exact ravine shortly after Kurt went missing. So that means that Ken went to the ravine and it was empty. And he knows that he would have noticed Kurt because at the time when Kurt was found, he was wearing a very visible bright yellow t-shirt, which would have been visible for him in the distance.
Do we have the information if he was wearing the same clothes that he wore during the party?
That's a very good question. Well, we don't have it. I would like to know that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and then last bizarre detail before we kind of jump to the, I guess, suspect and, try to see what's happening here is Eugene Quet. Eugene Quet.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I read about this guy, this teenage boy.
Okay, I don't have a lot of information, so how about I just tell you what I know and then you tell me if you know something additionally.
Let's go for it.
So all I know that 3 months after Kurt has been found dead, there was another weird moment. There was a death of a 13-year-old boy, Eugene Quet, who Kurt knew as well. And Eugene's death had very eerie resemblances to Kurt's death. Eugene was found in another ravine on Harvard Street, on the same street, 2.5 miles from the place where Kurt's body has been found. So also kind of very close proximity. 3 months later, both boys had been missing for some time before their death. And Eugene's right shoe was also never found, just like Kurt's right shoe was never found. But an autopsy apparently revealed that Eugene had died after falling into the ravine. So that's all I know about Eugene. Some very, very bizarre.
But,
Yeah.
so sorry to cut
No,
you
no.
off.
Tell me more.
Whether he fell in accidentally or he was pushed, we'll never know,
Good point.
right?
Yeah. I mean, anything else about this guy?
All I know is that they
About
were
this boy who passed away?
they were
Unfortunately?
found 2.5 miles away from each other.
Yeah.
And then they also lived 1 block from each other.
Oh, so they were like neighbors.
Yes, it's like very
my
close
goodness.
proximity.
Oh my goodness.
So it's just
Okay.
within that neighborhood.
Oh my goodness. Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's so crazy. Anything else about Eugene?
That's all I know.
But that's bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
A boy from his neighborhood also dies
In the same manner.
in the same manner.
And the shoe was also missing.
Right shoes. So
Found in the same
either
location.
this is a crazy accident or potentially there's a serial killer.
I'm suspicious about that mentally ill guy. The apparently mentally ill guy.
Me too now. There could be a serial killer who for some reason removes the right shoe of a victim. I've never heard about that type of a signature move, but I don't know, man. It's crazy.
It's really crazy.
And it's now a good time to jump into the suspects and talk about the suspects here. Who could be responsible for Kurt Sova's death? Because I don't know. I don't know about you, but to me, it seems, after looking at all of these details, that there is someone who is in some way like involved at least trying to like hide the body, move the body. There's a lot of like weird stuff happening.
Yeah, it feels a lot like a cover up of an avoidable death. It doesn't necessarily mean that they were intending to murder him or something, but it seemed like maybe someone panicked and tried to cover things up.
Yeah, just like you said, maybe they didn't want maybe I don't know, maybe that Susan woman because
She was very suspicious.
look, she was she was renting the apartment, so she was kind of like the person who would, I think, be blamed for like allowing underage drinking in her house. And then if Kurt Sova somehow overdoses in her house and she didn't prevent it, I mean, I could see how she would want to cover it up. And then she lied to Dorothy about the party not even happening. So she's extra suspicious.
She's clearly hiding something.
She's suspicious. We have that Detroit guy.
Yes, the crazy guy. Yep.
I mean, nothing more to say about that guy.
Other than he could have been a serial killer who killed 2 teenage boys.
Yeah. And we don't know anything more about Eugene Quet, right?
No.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing. I guess maybe law enforcement is looking at Eugene's case as an accident, and I guess it never really came out as much in the
Suspicious,
media.
yeah.
as Kurt's case. Who else do we have? I don't know. We have
Well,
Sam.
the party goers.
I'm gonna start with Sam. What do you think about Sam? Do you think his story is checks out that like he just left Kurt outside for a couple of minutes and he was gone?
Yes. Somehow, I would give a teenage boy a benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so yeah, Sam, I don't necessarily think he's lying here, but he was at the party.
Yeah, he was at the party, probably just having a really good time. Lost his friend and was
But
like,
maybe he knows more.
oh,
Because he
potentially,
was in
yeah.
the party. Who else was in the party? Do we know anything about it?
I think that's all we have.
That's all we have, all the information that we have. Okay, so one of the things that authorities later on told the media and everyone, they believe that it would take at least two people to carry Kurt's body to that ravine. Two people. So that would mean that, I mean, I don't know, does everyone, I mean, realistically, I'm thinking, is it possible that if there was more than a dozen people at the party, that everybody knows about what happened and everyone's just staying shut? I
No.
don't, it's so hard.
I don't think so. I think it's pretty hard to keep a lot of people quiet. Someone would spill out the beans.
Yeah.
So I think this could be an isolated, I would say, information.
Yeah, it would be like no less than a handful of people.
Maybe even 2 or 3 max.
Yeah, man. I mean, naturally, I'm thinking who is sleeping in Suzanne's basement?
I'm still frustrated about the fact that the police didn't even investigate this. Come on, there must have been a hair strand on the cot that could have proven that it was Kurt.
Yeah, right. And I mean, the biggest reason why I can't fully get behind the people at the party or Sam or even Suzanne for that matter is the fact that according to the coroner, he was only dead for 24 hours before his body was found.
No, I think Suzanne is highly suspicious.
Yeah, but how do you explain the 24 hours?
They kept him, maybe, in the
They
cot
kept him as he was dead?
as he was dead. No, I'm assuming that they kept him maybe in the basement and then he died in there and then
Oh,
they carried him out.
Oh, okay. I never thought about it. Wait, you're thinking that there's a chance that maybe he had some sort of like a weird, like strange, rare paralysis or something.
I think alcohol poisoning.
Boys, and you think they were trying to
Maybe
fix him?
take care of him so he would go back home completely sober and
Oh
normal.
my God, my mind is blown here because I somehow couldn't. Yeah, why would that not work? I'm trying to think.
Think of it this way. Kurt went to the party around, let's say, approximately 6 or 7 p.m. And by 9:30, he was already sick. He was vomiting. And he was highly intoxicated at that time. And Everclear is dangerously strong. And if he wasn't used to it, even a small amount could have hit hard.
Yeah, true, right? He did get drunk really quick.
And so
Into
I
the
was
night.
thinking maybe he was taken or led maybe in the basement instead of going home.
But then why would Suzanne sometime later be like, yo, I think Kurt's in the basement? Why would she even call?
No idea.
Why would she even call?
Maybe because they
Maybe somehow she doesn't have full access to the basement, like she only lives like on the second floor, and maybe some of the party goers were like kind of nurturing him in the basement somehow, but Suzanne doesn't have full access of the basement all the time, and then she only finds out that yo, there's something weird on the on like Wednesday, and by the time she finds out and maybe talks to some other people who were potentially like nurturing Kurt, they're like, oh crap, his dad is gonna be here. Let's go, go, go. dumped his body in the ravine. Maybe by that time he was already almost dead.
Yeah, maybe. But then again, I don't think Suzanne is innocent. With the way she lied, I
Oh
think.
my goodness, Suzanne is at the very least guilty of a couple of things I can think
Yeah.
of immediately.
I think maybe Kurt could have died of alcohol poisoning, dehydration, and exposure. But the 0% blood alcohol that was found in the system doesn't add up.
Doesn't add up,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's been, what, 5 days?
But maybe at that point, the alcohol had already evaporated.
Yeah, after
Maybe,
maybe 2 days.
but
Should have
maybe
been
he's
okay.
still like suffering from something. You know? Okay, hold that thought. I just found some more information about that strange Detroit guy. That guy comes back into the picture here a little bit. Apparently, the guy who predicted that Kurt would be found dead 2 days before he was found dead, at some point, apparently, he even bragged, I don't know to whom, maybe to law enforcement or maybe to the store manager, that he had access to bodies flown into the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. I don't know what that means. And then he also bragged about moving shoes from the bodies. After apparently leaving a threatening message, the man was reported to police, later arrested and interrogated. He mentioned something about shoes, okay? And he mentioned this before. Uh, he mentioned this before Kurt was found dead, and way earlier before Eugene was found dead. And he mentioned something about removing shoes. So he mentioned something about removing shoes. Kurt has a shoe missing. Eugene has a shoe missing, and this guy is never seen again. And he's bragging about like, oh, I have access to bodies flown into the Cleveland Hopkins Airport.
This is just crazy
And oh
scary.
man, what? Like, either this is a crazy coincidence or this guy looks more and more interesting now. This Detroit guy.
I can't believe the police let him free.
They determined that he was mentally and emotionally disturbed, but ruled him out as a suspect in Kurt's death.
Okay, but any information about him? Because come on, they could have tried finding him after finding Kurt's body.
After he was released from police custody, he left Newburgh Heights, probably before Kurt's body was found, because I don't know. That's just another great coincidence. And he has not been seen since.
Do you think he was at the party?
I don't know, man. I have no idea how old this guy is or anything. So, yeah, I don't know. You think he was in the party?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, so this Franco and Van sighting, I'm kind of like downplaying it in my mind right now. I don't know about you or the listeners. I don't know what you guys think about this Van Franco sighting, but I'm kind of like downplaying it right now. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that's just, I don't even know what to make up of it.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just gonna like remove it from my head because it's just very confusing.
Lastly, investigators. This is lastly, completely lastly, okay? I know I probably said that a few times already, but this is the one of the few things I'm gonna mention. Investigators believe that whoever put Kurt's body in the ravine were familiar with the area, most likely a local. And shortly before his body was found, a woman reportedly saw two young men dragging an unconscious teenage boy down an alley towards that particular location where Kurt was found. One of his feet was barefoot, just like Kurt. At the time, the woman who made the sighting thought it was a group of drunk teenagers. However, after Kurt was found dead, she wondered if she had seen him getting dragged into the ravine. She consulted with her husband, and her husband told her, "Don't talk to the cops. Let's mind our own business. And then about a year later, when she ran into Ken, Kurt's father, she told him about it. And that's when this information got passed to the police.
Oh, hey,
But
by the way, I think I saw your son getting dragged a year ago.
yeah,
Crazy.
and the police never interviewed this woman.
Oh, come on.
They never talked to her. It was a year later, they didn't talk to her. And in general, there was a backlash for police because
Well deserved.
they never took any pictures of Kurt's body at the scene.
Oh my gosh.
There was no search of the duplex. There were no written statements made by any of the party goers. We don't even know if they were questioned. And they had rejected an offer from Cleveland police because this was the local neighborhood police or something. And the court, according to Dorothy, Kurt's mom, they did not interview many of the people who came to her with leads. So law enforcement is kind of like not doing really good here. And on top of that, law enforcement, the Lieutenant Karras, he was later discovered to be a drug addict who allegedly assaulted handcuffed prisoners. And in 1991, he was convicted of attacking the prisoners, and he was giving himself a 6 to 15-year sentence. And he denied being involved in Kurt's death. So now the lieutenant of the police force also somehow is an interesting person of interest. So it's a very like weird case, man.
I think that the police did the Sova family here really dirty. I would say it's probably a combination of neglect and incompetence.
I also would say that guy who was like, "Oh, let's mind our own business. Don't report the sighting." You know, the woman who saw.
No, I kind of understand him in a way because maybe he was just protecting her. He's just a husband, and his wife potentially witnessed a crime, and he's probably just protecting her. Like, let's downplay this, let's forget about it, and let's be safe.
Yeah, honestly, I'm thinking myself, putting myself in that guy's shoes. I think I still go to the cops though, but yeah, I could see how someone wouldn't.
Yeah, out of fear. And come on, the cops, at least in this particular case, they're not the best.
No, it's a disaster. This is like the 1981 dream team of working on the case. So in 2019, the new Newburgh Heights Police Department reopened the case, and they're trying to find out what happened to Kurt. It's been 6 years since the case has been reopened, and we have no more information coming out. So maybe they are doing some investigations behind the scenes. I think, honestly, if they had any DNA preserved, they could potentially have something to work with. But I doubt that there was, given the fact that
I doubt it.
What a disaster.
No pictures were taken,
At the
let alone a
scene.
DNA.
Yeah, it was such a disaster, dude. That I think at this point they probably don't even have that much to work with. They have just like circumstantial stuff, and the case is like 45, almost 45 years old now. So it's a super long case. It almost happened half a century ago. I'm not sure what kind of progress they could make.
I do hope justice will be served because, I don't know, I think the family deserves it.
Yeah,
I could see
agree.
a loving family, and I don't think they deserve such neglect
Yeah,
by the
true,
police.
true.
And yeah,
I wonder if Susan's still alive. You know what I mean?
if she is, let's go to America. I want to talk to her and punch her. Sorry.
No, no, no. So yeah, I think that's it. So I think we ran through the notes. Everything's
Okay.
done.
What do you think? What's your main theory?
Yeah, what's my main theory about this case? Well, okay, so I think, yeah, Kurt goes to the party and he drinks, and I think something bad happens with the drinking because, yeah, it's reported that he gets sick. I somehow am leaning that Sam was telling the truth. So I think that maybe Kurt really did somehow like walked away somewhere. And I think if that happened, there are two possibilities. Either Kurt eventually comes back into the apartment, into the duplex, somehow like stays with the wrong people, gets even more sick, and then later on, somehow under weird circumstances, it just kind of like develops that way that they dump his body in the ravine, or after he goes away, when Sam went back inside to grab his jacket just for a couple of minutes, I think him being drunk and whatever, maybe he runs into the wrong crowd and gets abducted on a Friday night. I don't know what New Birth Heights or whatever that town called. I don't know what the crime rate there is or if there are any abductions happening, but I think him in that state, maybe it was a bad neighborhood. Maybe he could have been abducted, kept alive for multiple days in under captivity, and then dumped there. I think it's very strange. I would like to know how often Suzanne went down to her basement.
That we'll never know. Or she's probably gonna lie about it.
What do you think?
I think similar. I think that what happened to him was similar to your theory. I think he got really drunk, Everclear, really strong alcohol, and I'm not sure if he was drinking prior to that party, but it doesn't seem like he did. And somebody kept him. Maybe tried to nurse him back to health. Or I mean, I think the blood alcohol, the 11% that was found in his body, I feel like it's an indicator that he drank more before he passed.
Like, you mean even like after the party?
Yeah, because after the party, if alcohol poisoning was the case, then he would have been either okay after maybe a couple of days or he passed away after a couple of days. You know what I mean? 5 days is a little too much. What do you think?
No, I agree. Generally, I guess now we would like to hear our listeners. What do you guys think about the case? Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. We are gonna see you on the next one.
Yeah, if you have any suggestions, opinions, reactions, please let us know. And we'll see you very soon.
Stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.